In the last few months, due to some, unforeseen circumstances, I've been trapped in my house. As a result, I've been watching a lot of anime, reading a lot of manga, and finally dipping my toes into the world of visual novels. A while ago, I decided to start my exploration of the visual novel world with the Danganronpa series, and just the other day I finished the final installment of the series, Danganronpa V3. The whole time I've been playing through this series, I've been bugging my friends with my opinions, so I thought I might as well make a couple videos about my thoughts on each game. This video will be solely about the first installment in the series, Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc. For the uninitiated, the basic premise of the Danganronpa series is that 16 high schoolers who have exceptional talents, called Ultimates, are brought into a killing game where they have to kill a student and get away with it. After a murder takes place, students investigate and go into a class trial where they determine and vote for who they believe killed the victim. If the victims vote correctly, the murderer is executed and the students continue the killing game. If the students vote incorrectly, they all die painful deaths, and the murderer escapes laughing like Karin from Street Fighter V. The main plotline of the story is about the high school students trying to escape the school and end the killing game. Throughout the course of the game, the characters are given small hints as to what may be happening and who is the mastermind keeping them here. However, the majority of the big mysteries are revealed in Chapter 5 and 6. The main appeal of the Danganronpa games are the large cast of diverse characters and the intricate murder mystery aspects of the games. In this video, I'm going to talk about the first game in the series through 5 aspects: the characters, the map, the trials, the murder mystery, and the overarching plot. One thing that visual novels are known for is having amazing characters, and Danganronpa 1 is no exception. The cast of characters is super diverse and interesting. Although all the characters have their ultimate ability as their defining trait, many of the characters end up having extra layers underneath the surface. Just to name a few standout characters, Kyoko, Byakuya, and Toko are some of the most entertaining characters in the class trials. Kiyotaka, Mondo, and Asahina are characters that I really fell in love with outside of the class trials. Sayaka does a good job of setting the tone of the game, and Chihiro is involved in some really interesting plot developments. I also think the character that you play as, Makoto, is a satisfying protagonist. He's not anything special, but he's a good self-insert character. Okay, so maybe I've named more than half the cast by accident, but that just shows how many great characters there are in this game. In addition to the students, Monokuma, the main antagonist of this game, is really fun to watch. He also does a little theater bit when Makoto goes to sleep. It's stupid. The art style that the characters are drawn in feels super unique, and the character design itself is amazing. The outfits the students wear manage to make their personalities feel recognizable from the moment you see them without feeling super over the top. Unfortunately, not every character is amazing. I'm looking at you, Yasuhiro. This man's only purpose in this game is to be so dumb that everything coming out of his mouth is not what's actually happening. Although going through the story of the game gives you a good idea of who the characters are, the best way to get to know your favorite characters is in free time. Before a murder happens in a chapter, there are periods of time when you can have optional conversations and build relationships with the other students. Not only does this give you a chance to get to know each character better, it also makes it that much more painful and the cold grip of death takes them away from you. Watching all these characters interact with one another is one of the best parts of this game and helps alleviate some of the monotony of the class trials. Before moving on to the next section, I want to talk about the voice acting in this game. Normally, I'm not the biggest fan of English voice acting in Japanese games. However, in this game it really works. The voice actors sound like they're having a ton of fun, and it really gives a lot of extra life to these characters.
If you're presented with the opportunity to check out the girls' locker room,
You absolutely take it! That's a natural reaction for any guy!
This game takes place in Hope's Peak Academy, a school for extraordinary high schoolers. The school is secluded from the outside world, and the students are trapped inside by Monokuma, who forces them to play a killing game. After each chapter, a new part of the map opens up for you to explore. For the most part, the map of this game is pretty good. Each floor is diverse, while still fitting into the school setting. The only exception to this is Floor 5, which is a dojo, a frozen morgue, and a garden with a plant that can eat people. The biggest issue about this map is its verticality. You could say that this game is the Dark Souls 1 of visual novels, because there's a lot of running around and backtracking. At least it was for me, because I'm an idiot who can't read the instructions that told me how to fast travel. Each floor only has a few rooms with a small loading screen between each level. The game also forces you to go from one floor to the next a lot. The one upside of the verticality of the map is that the developers were aware of it. In fact, there's one murder in the later part of the game that takes advantage of the time that it takes to get from floor to floor. The map at its absolute worst is in Chapter 6, where you can end up running from the top floor all the way down to the ground floor multiple times if you don't know what you're doing. Doing this goddamn journey multiple times makes me feel like I'm wasting away and doing nothing, and confronting the sad reality of my life is not what I come to video games for. Overall, I still feel like the map for this game is passable, if not a bit frustrating to deal with at times. After each murder, you're able to investigate a bit before going into a class trial. This section basically boils down to clicking on pieces of evidence and talking to classmates to acquire truth bullets, which are used in class trials. Each class trial is broken up into 4 playable sections, 3 minigames, and 1 section where you choose the correct multiple choice answer. By far the best minigame is non-stop debate. This is a section in which a bunch of characters have a debate, and you have to decide which statement to shoot with a truth bullet. Even though I said this was the best minigame, it can still be pretty frustrating, especially when you have to choose between multiple truth bullets. There have been times where I could explain what point I was trying to make, but I could not find the right statement and truth bullet combination to progress the trial. The game also adds to this minigame over time, with the big addition being absorb bullets, where you can use the statement that a character says to contradict another statement. Although it is a cool mechanic in theory, it is used too sparingly to be an active thought in my mind. This means that it always takes me a while to realize I need to use an absorb bullet instead of a regular truth bullet. The next best minigame is Bullet Time Battle, but it isn't really anything special. It's just your standard press the right button at the right time minigame. However, if you have enough resources, you can just mash your face against the keyboard and win. The worst minigame by far is Hangman's Gambit. This is a minigame where you go into the mind of Makoto and try to figure out the word that he's thinking of by basically playing Hangman. This is such a frustrating minigame, not only because it has worse trial and error gameplay than non-stop debate, but also because some of the words that you're trying to figure out are just so dumb. Like seriously? Schizo? So dumb. The small selection of the mostly subpar minigames, in addition to the trials being around 90 minutes long on average, makes the trials a bit lackluster. The saving grace of the trials is the already mentioned great dialogue, story, and amazing voice acting. One defining characteristic of the Danganronpa series are the murder mysteries that you solve. With each video in the series, I am going to highlight one chapter that I feel represents how the game handles the murder mysteries, both the positive and the negative. For this video, I'm going to do a synopsis of the second chapter of the game. If you have not played Danganronpa 1, and any of what I have already said about this game interests you, stop watching the video here, as the rest of this video will contain major spoilers for Chapter 2, 5, and 6 of Danganronpa 1. At the beginning of the chapter, the second floor is unlocked, so the first thing you do is explore it. The notable rooms on the second floor are the library, the pool, and the locker rooms. When you get to the entrance of the locker rooms, you have a conversation with Chihiro about how she feels uncomfortable changing in front of the others. She also talks a bit about how she wants to get stronger. The next day, Byakuya does not appear at breakfast like normal, so everybody starts to search for him. You find him in the library, where he says he views all the other students as enemies. A few nights later, Mondo and Kiyotaka have an argument about who is more manly, leading them to see who can last longer in the sauna. In the morning, Byakuya comes to breakfast and starts talking about Genocide Jack, a serial killer who kills in bizarre and specific ways. A few nights later, Monokuma gives each of the students a letter containing their worst secret. He states that if nobody is killed in the next 24 hours, everybody's biggest secret will be revealed. After a conversation with the other students about how much they value their biggest secrets, you go to bed and wake up to Monokuma telling you that someone's been killed. Fucking seriously, guys? I thought we were less predictable than this. After some searching around, you find Chihiro's body in the girls' locker room. After finding the body, Byakuya quickly takes the lead on the investigation, suggesting that Genocide Jack is among us and the killer. Toko comes into the girls' locker room and faints when she sees the body. She quickly wakes up and seems a bit different from her usual introverted self. You see a bloody dumbbell on the ground and determine that this is the weapon that was used to kill Chihiro. After some more investigating, we find out that the deceased handbooks, which tell us the rules and give us access to certain rooms, are all together in the starting room of the game. In addition to this, one of the student handbooks is broken. Monokuma then tells you the handbooks are virtually indestructible, with only one weakness to them. You then go to Toko, who's cowering in fear in her room. She tells you she won't let Genocide Jack have control, and tells Byakuya that she is sorry that she broke their promise. You then go to the library, where Byakuya tells you about the Genocide Jack murders. Essentially, the two things all Genocide Jack murders have in common is that the word bloodlust is always written out in blood, and that the victims' bodies are always suspended by something. He also tells you that the suspending condition is information only available to high-up officials, so the murderer must be the real Genocide Jack. You read the case file for yourself and confirm what Byakuya said. Next, you go back to the scene of the crime and Kyoko tells you to reinvestigate the body. Upon doing so, you find that Chihiro was suspended by an extension cord that was initially in the library. You also notice that there's a poster of a swimsuit model with fat titties in the girls' locker room with blood splattered on it. When you go to the boys' locker room, you see a poster of a bunch of sexy boys on the wall. You also find a brown stain in the carpet of the boys' locker room. You then go to Sakura and she tells you about a coffee stain that disappeared from the girls' locker room. Afterwards, you go to find that the lamp Byakuya was using earlier in the chapter is unplugged. Additionally, you discover that the Genocide Jack files are also gone. At some point in the investigation, you talk to Hifumi, and he tells you that he knows a secret, but he won't tell you what it is.
Tell me your secret, large man.
What?
He also wants you to talk to Celeste. When you talk to her, she tells you about seeing Chihiro on her way to exercise the night before the murder. For some reason, you also have to talk to Asahina. She tells you that Chihiro was always uncomfortable around girls. I wonder if something was up with Chihiro. Well, whatever. After your conversation with Asahina, you hear the ring of the school bell. Instead of doing a play-by-play like I did with the investigation, I'm going to sum up all the big reveals that happened in the trial. First, Toko is Genocide Jack, or more precisely, Genocide Jill. They come to this conclusion because she changed it to someone completely different for a bit after she fainted. Toko also told Byakuya that she was Genocide Jill, which makes things a little bit easier. Toko faints, and Genocide Jill appears. Second, Genocide Jill is not the killer. This was determined because in the case file, all the victims were murdered and suspended with scissors, instead of murdered with a dumbbell and suspended by an extension cord. Third, Byakuya framed Genocide Jill. Byakuya knew about the file and about Toko being Genocide Jill beforehand. On top of this, the object used to suspend the body was initially in the library, which he was using. Fourth, Chihiro is actually a boy. Yeah, you all saw this coming. Fifth, Byakuya is not the killer. He is way too easygoing about being accused, and the evidence that he left behind made things too easy. He was also surprised when he learned that Chihiro was a boy. The fact that Chihiro is a boy is something the killer had to have known, as it was revealed that he was killed in the boys' locker room, and a murderer made it seem like it took place in the girls' locker room. Lastly, it is revealed that Mondo is the killer. The reason they start suspecting him is because he calls Chihiro dude, but refers to the other girls as chicks. It is also revealed that Chihiro's student handbook was destroyed, and that the only weakness of the handbook is heat. You then remember back to when Mondo and Kiyotaka went into the sauna together. Mondo had his clothes on, presumably with his student handbook in his pocket. After a bit more convincing, everyone votes for Mondo, who then gets executed. I'll go ahead and say it. This trial is my favorite trial in the entire series. It is everything I want in a murder mystery. Compelling characters, an interesting murder, and a ton of twists that can be figured out before they are revealed. Also, Genocide Jill is just a really fun character to watch. Partially because she makes food analogies and calls everybody different foods, and partially because the voice acting job on this character is outstanding.
What happened to you?
Not Toko. That's a loser name. And what happened is a textbook split personality.
One thing that I will say is a bit of a downside is that some of the foreshadowing and hints the game gives you can be a bit heavy-handed. Things like Chihiro actually being a boy and Genocide Jack not really being the killer were two things I figured out before the trial on my first playthrough of the game. However, the twists that are harder to spot, like Mondo being the murderer, are pretty great. Another strike against the trial was that the game kept how Mondo destroyed Chihiro's handbook a secret until the trial, which is a bit frustrating. Although you could argue that enough evidence was given to you before the trial, it feels a bit cheap. Oh well, I'm sure this is just a one-time problem that'll never come up again in the series, you know? Like I said earlier, Chapter 5 is when the main plot of the game kicks into full gear. In Chapter 5, the students find an unidentifiable body. The trial is essentially unsolvable with the clues available to them. They believe the victim is Mukuro Ikusabu, a student who they have never seen before, but has been living in the shadows of the school in secret. Kyoko is about to be framed for the murder when Makoto gives a $50 donation to her OnlyFans and gets executed in her place. Chapter 6 begins with Makoto waking up in what looks like a trash disposal area. Best Girl Kyoko helps Makoto out and tells Makoto she knows he didn't kill Mukuro. Kyoko and Makoto then go to Monokuma to request a retrial of the murder of Mukuro. Because the killing game is being broadcasted to the world and needs to be seen as fair, Monokuma accepts. Makoto reunites with the other surviving students, but the celebration is cut short, as Kyoko states that the mastermind has to be one of the 16 students that have participated in the killing game. Right before the start of the investigation, Monokuma unlocks all rooms in the academy. After some investigating of the previously closed-off areas of the academy and a re-investigation of the crime scene and the body, the trial starts. In this trial, it is revealed that Junko Enoshima, who they thought to have died in Chapter 1, is the murderer of Mukuro Ikusaba and the mastermind behind the killing game. From the very beginning of the game, Mukuro and Junko swap places, with Mukuro acting as Junko for the killing game and the real Junko Enoshima pulling the strings from the shadows. After killing Mukuro in Chapter 1, Junko used Mukuro's body in Chapter 5 to frame Makoto. Once all this is revealed, the mastermind, Junko Enoshima, appears. I hate to keep talking about the voice acting over and over again, but Junko's voice actor did such an amazing job, especially considering that she had to do like 5 or 6 voices.
It was like I was stuck in purgatory.
You're like I said, I get bored easy as hell. I even get fucking bored with myself.
Well, no, of course not.
I've never been a stickler for following a plan to the letter, you know? You haven't even solved all the mysteries, and yet here you are, yapping away!
I'm the hopelessly perfect ultimate human.
Junko says the whole reason that their memories were taken away was to motivate them to leave Hope's Peak. Apparently, before they had their memories taken away, they had no desire to leave the school. When the students ask why, she shows them the outside world, filled with despair. The students have no idea how this happened in the few weeks they were in the academy, but Makoto comes up with an idea to find out. Earlier in the game, it is established that Toko and Genocide Jill have separate memories, so Makoto asks them to swap places. Genocide Jill comes out and explains that the biggest, most awful, most tragic event in human history, nicknamed the Tragedy, caused the world to go into despair. She also says that it happened around a year ago, but she does not know any details of the incident. Junko corrects Genocide Jill and says that the students have been attending Hope's Peak Academy for 2 years before the tragedy happened, meaning that 2 years of their school lives were taken from them. After the tragedy, the headmaster of the academy made it into a shelter for ultimates, but it turned bad since Junko and Mukuro were there. The killing game was a plan made by the two of them to destroy every last bit of hope that the world has left by broadcasting it worldwide. Junko's final revelation is that she anticipated the students would solve the trial and fall into despair. Junko then gives the students a choice for the final vote. If all the students vote to punish despair, Junko will execute herself, and the students will be forced into the despair-filled outside world. If even one of the students votes to punish Hope, Makoto will be executed, and the rest of the students can live out their lives inside of Hope's Peak Academy. All hope seems lost, with everybody except Makoto falling into despair. In what might be the most anime ending I've ever seen, Makoto inspires everybody with hope, and his true ultimate ability, the ultimate hope, is revealed. Junko freaks out, but Makoto defeats her with the power of hope. Junko Enoshima is then executed, never to be seen in any of the future Danganronpa games ever again. After the trial, the remaining students, filled with hope, leave the outside world and the screen fades to white. I really like this ending. The trial itself followed a similar pattern to that of Chapter 2, where all the information you need is given to you, but piecing everything together is harder than just finding all of the evidence. I think Junko Enoshima being the mastermind is a great twist, which both comes out of left field and makes complete sense. Sure, the end of the trial is a bit cliche, but I still enjoyed it. I will say, I am a little biased towards this trial. All of my favorite characters ended up being a big part of the trial, but I still think it can be considered a good ending to the game. Overall, I really love Danganronpa 1. Although the map and minigames are far from perfect, I wasn't super put off by it. After all, the characters in the story are the real stars of the game. As far as video game stories go, it's pretty phenomenal. The mysteries are well thought out, and I ended up caring a lot more than I thought I would about most of the characters. With all that being said, I have no fucking clue how to end this video. So, leave your thoughts about Danganronpa 1 in the, comments, you know? See you in 2 weeks.